Enlightenment means going beyond the separate form and becoming eternity itself. So enlightenment is the death of the separate form, but it is not dying because the separate form never lived. So no one dies. It is beyond the mind's ability to realize how a separate form may look and act as if it exists, when in fact it doesn't. But enlightenment means knowing that. Knowing that as a fact. Knowing what you are, knowing yourself. This is enlightenment. No one knows himself, because when you say know thyself, you still mean that there is someone who needs to know who he is. And okay, there is a character, and now she knows she is eternity. This is not enlightenment. Enlightenment isn't someone who knows he is eternity. Enlightenment is eternity. Eternity that doesn't even know that it is enlightened or eternity. It just is what it is. This transformation from being a flesh and blood human being with all the troubles in the world on his head, all the psychological structures, all these abilities and restrictions, the transformations between this thing and enlightenment, which is the state. It is not something that happens to someone. It is the state, and the transformation between this state and enlightenment itself, which is the state, the natural state that has always been what is, it is seamless because it's natural. It needs no effort. So no one is being enlightened because there was no one to begin with. But enlightenment itself is not an act or something that happens to a person or a process, or the Kundalini rises and something comes and changes the brain. And this is enlightenment. It happens to a person. And the person is enlightened. This is not how it goes. Though in the story, in the illusion of the story, it may seem like it happens this way, in an energetic way, to someone, and this someone is enlightened. But in reality, enlightenment is a state. It's a constant state of bliss, quietness, stillness. It is the state. So when it happens, of course it doesn't happen because nothing ever happens, because there is no one here. But when it happens, nothing happens and no one is being enlightened, and the state just takes over the situation and acts freely and automatically and joyfully. The illusion of the story makes us believe that things happen all the time around us, happening to us, happening in the world, changing, time passes. But enlightenment is a state in which nothing ever happens, and so it's very logical that if nothing ever happens in this state, enlightenment also cannot happen. It is already there. It is already this. This is what is. And the realization of the character in the dream and the illusion is the point of dying. But it is unreal as the other events that happen to the character prior to this being what it is. Everything that happens to the character is an illusion. Enlightenment, the moment of self-realization, is also, it belongs to this illusion. The illusion of someone ceases to exist, dying, a character that never existed. But the point itself in which it happens also belongs to the story, also belongs to the illusion. And it is the end of this illusion of the story. And this is why it's the end of the story, the end of the play. And even if it continues in the character's life like it does right now, it doesn't happen. So it is what it is, and it talks. And now in the illusion of the story of the character Simcha, it talks about what is enlightenment. But these words are not being said. It is a great paradox, I know, but this is the state. It knows, it never acts. The point in the illusion of the story of enlightenment is the moment that the character realizes what it is. This fleeting moment that belongs to the story cancels everything. It cancels the story, it cancels the character, it cancels everything that the character thought about herself and the world and everything. And it is being replaced by something, by a state, by quietness that follows different rules. And it's very hard to describe this thing because it is what it is, and it's not being perceived as a character would perceive it. So if a character, for example, would think, okay, I would be enlightened and I will feel great and I will not suffer anymore, and everything will, I will know what I am, and this will be so great. Yet she thinks about the character that will not suffer. It still sees itself as separate from this thing, whilst when enlightenment expresses itself, self-realization, oneness, all-nothingness, expresses itself freely, there is no need for any of the things the character wanted. It doesn't want not to suffer, it doesn't want to be happy, it doesn't need all these things. So everything that happens in the field of this thing is this thing, and it is blessed, even if it's suffering, even if it's the circumstances are not helping the character. It doesn't matter, but because this thing knows it's everything, so it is free from this narrow perspective of seeing what the character needs. It takes over, knows everything, and is free to express itself. And I know people say that this is what we are oneness. We are always this oneness. It is still, I know the words are familiar to you. How I wish the knowing would be familiar to you. This knowing is endless, 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 endless answers that no one is asking about. There is no character that asks, okay, what is God? And this enlightened state says, okay, God is everything and you are everything. There are no questions. There are no unsolved issues. There are no desires. There are no feelings. There is nothing. And this great nothing is this thing, which you see when you look around you, is this thing shaped as forms. Wow! To see the idea in the shape of forms, it's so clever. It's so sophisticated, much more sophisticated than any of the accomplishment that the human race has achieved. No, all the advances in technology, it's nothing compared to the sophistication of what is, to the collaboration, to the synchronicity of what is. It is beyond immense, beyond the greatest words. And it is it. And when the separate form dies, and it dies because there is no turning back from this state, and the character dies completely and never returns. She never returns, and there is no sorrow on this separate form that never existed. You can never grieve something that never existed, that was only in your imagination. Knowing what you see without a seer, the process of seeing is such a complicated process. Someone is looking at something and interprets what it sees, and then the brain interprets what the image was, and then there is a conclusion and you see something. And enlightenment, all nothingness, sees nothing, nothing. No need to interpret anything. Everything is, without a name, without a meaning, without a role. This is the state. This is why it's so, so blessed. It is beyond the human experience. As long as the human experience is limited to the belief, the mistake, the false belief that you are this character, that this is who you are truly. When enlightenment is expressing it is always nothing, an extreme quietness. It is always bliss, always joy. It's not a sensation that Simcha, the character, carries around with her. Okay, Simcha is feeling ecstatic all the time. 5 years of ecstasy, 5 years of bliss, 5 years of quietness ever since the transformation. No. No one is feeling those feelings, no one is enjoying them. It is the same for her to feel this emotion in the separate form of the illusion, and for you. We feel them right now together. This is what we feel. This is what all nothingness knows. Because Simcha is you, and the camera, and the fly on the wall. Just like you are everything right now. This is what you are. You are everything. You are enlightenment itself. You are nothingness. You are oneness. You are this thing. Nothing ever happens, so no suffering can be real. So no sorrow can be real. And I know, and I have been in the shape of a human being, inside this illusion, this mistake. I've been living like that for 45 years, because it has happened to Simcha at the age of 45. And she managed to live a full life in this identification. She gave birth to 4 children in this way of believing that she is a mother. She buried her mother and was sorry and full of sorrow, and she had to struggle very hard. So she knows that when this thing says right now, oh, this sorrow is not real, this pain is not true, it can sound so unloving or harsh and cruel. But in fact, I'm trying. It tries. This thing tries to express how free you are right now, how immensely happy you are right now. If you could connect to this knowing somehow, your way to connect to these words or to the words of other people who claim these claims, which are true. To lessen the amount of sorrow that it is in your life, to lessen the pain. And it's not running away from the pain and the sorrow. I do not recommend sitting and praying that it will pass, or meditating on it, or questioning yourself on it. I recommend acting as hard as you can just to solve your problems, just to be balanced. Just try to be balanced. This will help you in your spiritual voyage. But this is not to say that if I say your sorrow and pain is not real, it's an illusion. It's not a way, okay, oh, she's offering something nice, so I can feel nice about it. I'm offering you the truth. It is here. In this video and in other videos of people who know and talk about this thing, they know they do not exist. Simcha does not exist, and nothing exists, and yet this illusion offers the truth. Enlightenment, oneness, all nothingness, needs nothing and wants nothing. This is why it's not supernatural. It is not a supernatural event. When oneness knows itself, or nothingness knows itself, it knows the matter does not exist. And yet it has no urge to demonstrate it or test it. It just observes what we ourselves created. We created an illusion of a matter so powerful, a person cannot take his hand and just go through it. It cannot. So why dare it? Why change it? It's so beautifully constructed. This is why enlightenment, true enlightenment, does not deal with anything supernatural or supernatural abilities to look inside the future, or to think what other people are thinking and heal people. This is not what it is about. It's simply expressing what is, where you are, and the shape you are in your surroundings. This is what your enlightenment will look like. And it's not very glamorous. I confess. It's quite the opposite. It's pretty ordinary. And it's so wonderful to clean your house and to clean the bathroom and know what you are and what you are doing. You don't need to prove anything to anyone or to change reality. Reality, the apparent illusion, does not change in the way when you are enlightened, when the person is enlightened. It is too grand, too infinite to play with. No need to play with it. No one who wants to play with this reality and do things other than what is happening, because what is happening is already so complicated, beautifully constructed, amazing, blissful and joyful, and in this illusion you just have to observe it and act inside it. You don't need anything else. And yet, and this state knows everything. So when it is connecting to people and places, it is like a live wire. It is highly awake and observant, and it can see things and know them just because it looks directly at itself. When you look directly at yourself without the interference of the separate form and the psychological structure, when the seeing of the situation is not being perceived by an eyes of a person, it's being looked at in all these angles of what is happening. When you are this thing, you see the situations from all the other perspectives, all at once. So you can act inside and know things that may seem like, how did you know? Or how did you feel that? But I discovered that it helps the character Simcha help others more effectively, because she knows what they are thinking, she knows what they are feeling, she knows what they are about to do, because it's so obvious. If you just look at them in the situation, I believe that anyone who would look at another person carefully, attentively, with all the desire to understand him, will know what the other person needs or is about to do and how to react to that. So now she can help more effectively, and her presence is more calming because she is what is, and you can be yourself around her, and you can gain this quietness just by her not being a character that has an opinion of you. She knows she's you, and you feel comfortable with yourself. So it's a strange thing, a beautiful thing, the only thing. There is nothing else when I talk about this thing, enlightenment or knowing yourself or nothingness. Beautiful thing, which is the only thing that is and is not. All the other things are these leaves in the wind, have no meaning, nothing. It holds inside itself everything. Need nothing because it is everything. So it's such, it is this. This is the only thing that is. And if Simcha can offer her take on this, how to get to be what you are already, it's very simple. You are everything that is around you. If you will pay attention and love everything around you as if it was you yourself. In Hebrew, there's a known saying of Rabbi Akiva. It was Rabbi Akiva. And he said, love the other as you love yourself. And this is a great truth. If you will look at others as you look at yourself, if you will help others the way you help yourself, if you see them, you are instantly this thing. Every time you do that, you become oneness, you become enlightened, you become this oneness that works within itself. And one day, when you do that, you will realize that this was what you were doing all along, and the separate form will, hopefully, just die.